The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you guys are. Thank you for attending the webinar on some of the benefits and how we can improve and create time by using technology. Now, we're on the dot, we're about to start, but before we start, we'll just wait for a few minutes to give people some attendees, because we can see that people are trying to log in. So we'll just wait for one more minute, because again, once we can see people are trying to log in, let them finish logging in, because they're going through the process. And as soon as they've done that, we'll start. Now, whilst we're waiting, let me just go through the agenda. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a quick overview of Cordis Solutions. Then we're going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to let our guest speaker, Sebastian Stein, talk about a little bit about one-on-one and what they do. And then it's very important that Sebastian's then going to share experiences of how and what they did and how about their journey. Then we'll do a little live demonstration of the applications that they used to address some of the business problems that they had. Then I'm going to have a small discussion with our colleagues, again, from one-on-one, more like a chat, to talk about some of the experiences they came across with Rafaela in the landscape, in the integration elements of it. And then that will give us a little bit of time to do a quick summary in terms of what's happening, some of the benefits, how long it took to put the project in. And hopefully, if everything goes well, we should have some time for questions and answers. And if you do want to send in any questions, please use the chat functionality that you have at the bottom, where it says chat or questions. Questions is preferred, obviously. So if you put the questions functionality we have at the bottom, fill that in, and that will go to our moderator, Juliana, who then will tell us what questions are coming up and how we're going to deal with them. What I'll do now is, we have had some more attendees come in, so we're now going to start the session. And what I would like to do is quickly say a few introductions, a few words about our attendee presenters. We'll start with Rafaela. Rafaela works for one-on-one. Again, you'll know more about one-on-one in a little while when Sebastian does the introduction. She looks after the SAP side in terms of the support side of the SAP system, some of the business improvement sides. Fairly extensive role. She's a very experienced SAP person, coming from an SAP background. And again, she can tell us a little more about herself later on. But in the meantime, what I would like to do is quickly introduce also Sebastian Stein, who's going to be our first presenter today from one-on-one. He's the senior project coordinator, and before he became the coordinator, he was actually the one of the controllers, and was looking after making sure all the management accounting is done correctly. So, and then last but not least, myself. I'm one of the co-founders for Cordis Solutions, and I'm also one of the guys who spent some time developing and solution architecting the solution that you're about to look at. So I know a little bit about the stuff. So if you have any questions about the architecture and the business side of it, I'll be more than happy. Be able to help. A little bit about Cordis Solutions, not too much. Our focus is very simple. It's really to help organizations get the most benefit out of the SAP solution. And the way we do this is SAP as a tool is a fantastic tool. Sometimes the integration, the workflow, the simplicity isn't there. And what we've done as an organization, is build a little applications which makes SAP easy to use. And you know, and then we're going to look at two applications that today that which we believe does make SAP a little bit easy to use. And more importantly, instead of me saying it makes them easy to use, it's more important to hear from an end customer about why and how they're using the applications and what benefits is giving to them. So I think that's more important. So I'm not going to spend too much on these slides, apart from saying that, look, the focus is improvement, modernization, easy to use. The other things which we found when we are building these applications is some of these applications we built are designed or actually can help organizations address some of the bigger problems which we can have in organizations. I mean, Ashridge and Harvard did a study in terms of when they found the 5 biggest causes of business problems. It was training, procedure clarity. People don't know where to go to look for the processes or to follow the processes. People sometimes are the wrong people. Now, the application is not going to solve that problem, but number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, the application does help. Now, as I said, it's not about us positioning the applications, it's more about a customer looking at this thing and sharing experiences. So without much ado, let me go into that next slide and hand over to Sebastian, who will then tell us about their journey in terms of transformation journey, a little bit about themselves. Over to you, Sebastian.
Thank you, Ramesh. Once again, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Sebastian. I work at 1&1, currently as senior project coordinator, but also I'm the SAP key user here. So you'll never hear a bad thing from me about SAP, obviously. So I work with SAP and SAP related programs for a long time now. And more about 1&1, obviously. 1&1 outside of Germany is mainly known for its hosting business. In Germany, we also have a massive telecommunications brand as well. Outside of Germany, you will, can get your domains, your cloud servers, dedicated servers from us. We are currently present in around 10 countries and 9,400 employees, massive finance department, massive controlling department, a lot of SAP users, normally a lot of problems, especially if it comes to the month end. And that's where I want to start. So obviously, before we actually got in contact with Cordis Solutions, we had our basic month-end routine. As I just mentioned, 9,400 employees, 10 different countries, an awful lot of different entities in SAP. Means normally an awful lot of journals at the month end, talking here hundreds of journals, especially if you talk about accruals in terms of cost of sales accruals, revenue accruals, you name it, we had it. And obviously, it's always a data flow that needs to take place between controlling departments and then accounting departments. And we had a very smart, as we saw, it was smart solution. We used a customized SAP CSV upload format. Yeah, worked perfectly fine as long as the file was intact. There were no issues in terms of validations. Everyone who knows SAP and uses this in a certain correct way has all set up validations that you can only use certain order numbers with certain accounts and so on and so on and so on. So we actually are quite sophisticated with this, and that becomes an issue if you want to transfer data, because when you normally use an SAP upload journal, the journal will stop and the batch input will not be processed once it runs to an error. Yeah. And if you have a file, just imagine with 200 lines, and in row 2 there's an error, the program will stop, will tell you the error. You fix the error, then it runs. You start the file again, and it runs. And then in row 7, another error. If you have 400 lines, it might take a long time to actually fix your journal, especially if you're not the one who can fix it. If you're the accountant, the poor accountant, in a world of 200 something order numbers, yeah, doesn't know which is the correct order number to use, so he has to go back to the controlling department, call him, email him. Best case, call him, because that will solve the problem quite quickly. But maybe email him, and then all this ping pong starts with controlling finance, fixing it. And believe me, it was a pain occasionally actually to get all the data in for month end. And obviously, all those files are Excel files. Yeah? They're submitted by controlling, for example, to finance. There's no way that you actually can make sure that an accountant who feels like more like a controller, for example, could change the numbers. Yeah. So in terms of audit trail, not saying that this happened quite often, but it could have happened that anyone could have just changed the numbers, and if the controller doesn't check his numbers again, look at his COPA accounting fields and say, okay, this value looks strange, it would be there, the number would be posted. So there was no actual control and check that accountants, whoever processes those journals, were able to, or not able to, amend the data. So obviously we had a lack of security there. And last but not least, no audit trail. So you could see who posted the document. Yeah, that's what you had in SAP, but you could misuse some fields in SAP to get some information about the actually person who created the document and so on and so on. But it was all like, in terms of audit trail, I wouldn't call it best practice, say it like that. And then we had another big problem where we actually needed a conclusion. As I mentioned, we have a lot of companies, and obviously in different countries, and occasionally, like all companies do, we try to source certain things, especially in the cost of sales area, centrally to get a better price. But if you source something centrally, you get, like, for all around the world, one invoice in Germany, for example, and then you need to cross-charge it to your various entities. If you do this quite often, and they need to recharge those cost items to your partners, either in Germany or in the UK or in the US or in France or Spain, you name it, we have it. It's a highly manual process, because in Germany we have all this, like, you know, as good accountants, no posting without voucher principle. So basically you receive an invoice, and just imagine this invoice is split between 3 different entities, one in Germany, or like 2 in Germany, 1 in the UK, 1 in the US, so say 4. That means the accountant who posts the invoice needs to actually make 4 copies of this invoice. Yeah. Then at the end of the month, an invoice is issued for all those things that need to be recharged between those entities. Then it's another thing, you need to look what VAT rate is used. Between UK and Germany, it's easy, it's that reverse, not a thing, but between different Germanys, so you need to look, are they in between same tax group or not? So it's a lot of VAT impact as well, highly manual and very time consuming. So a lot of hours were earned each month, especially at the bottleneck of the month end. Yeah, you all notice the time is of the essence there. So we looked into various solutions, and Dane came in contact with Ramesh and his Cordis team, and they actually, in terms of the cross recharging, and developed a completely new product for us, and it's part of the Cordis myIntercompany functionality, which enables us to use the standard SAP, and that's quite important. We're using SAP standard functionalities here, cross-entity charging systems, and it just adds certain things, adds text posting to this, and actually generates an VAT acceptable invoice as well in the background. So using SAP standard and just adding bits and pieces to it, because in SAP, a lot of you might know, there is already the cross-entity charging available. Like if you're in the US, where you have no VAT laws, you have just sales and use tax. I think you don't have this issue, but if you're in Germany or in the UK, where you have VAT laws, and especially as well as some certain rules how an invoice needs to look and when an invoice needs to be issued, and so on and so on and so on, it becomes very tricky if VAT gets involved, and you need to follow strict lines and rules. So Cordis helped us there and added something to the SAP standard that was there, and this saved us tons of time in the months end. And obviously, we had it recently. There was some things, and it didn't work. We had some issues with an update that went wrong with transport, and company for many people called me because this functionality wasn't working anymore, because it saved people so much time that they didn't want to use the old browser. We had to do all the copies again. So they said, okay, it's like 2 hours and we wait and just postpone the posting and so on and so on. So I haven't seen an experience or the feedback like this from any implementation I've done in SAP, at least from the end users. So that was quite good feedback to get. And coming back to our journals, I think that what Ramesh will show as well. I don't know if Ramesh will show the myIntercompany functionality. I think so. The plan is that it is, but the journal we had, obviously, we are looking in our journal postings at month end, the solution that enables us to have just to solve the problems we had. Yeah, we didn't want to have this email ping pong between accounting and controlling. We wanted to have an audit trail. We want to have an easier process. Yeah. So the 2 things nearly everyone knows, at least in the finance world, is one of them is Excel. Some of them are friends with it, some of them are not, but everyone at least knows it. And we're all on the internet, so there's a web browser. Everyone can use a web browser. So this is one of the first things that actually struck me when I looked at the Cordis solution, because it harnesses those 2 things everyone knows. One is Excel, so that the entrance of the journal is basically like the FP01 in an Excel version, similar to it. So it's an improvement of the FP01, because I can use my FP01 now in Excel and communicate with SAP, and I'm actually connected with SAP. It's like we've all been looking for accounts, I guess, in SAP. It can be tedious because the search functionality is not always the best. That's one of the things, obviously, in this version. It's the search. Even so, you're in an Excel version, but you're connected to SAP through myFIdoc. The search is 10 times better than if you would search in SAP. So even if it does not look at an account, I right now use the Cordis solution because it's easier and I can better search. But no, I'm lost. Sorry. So I was like, yeah. So basically, we used the solution then and introduced it, and I think it took us 2 months to get people to use it. You know, people were always, when there's something new, people don't like change. But the good thing was, as mentioned before, if it's Excel, it's not like a strange tool you need to open. Yeah, it's not complicated. It's Excel, and the format. Because we actually went away and had some templates used, and they look similar to the old CSV templates. So people say, "Oh, it looks similar, so it can't be that bad." So that actually helped us to get user acceptance for what's always for every new tool you try to introduce. That's quite important, because if people don't want to use it, they normally don't use it. So this helped a lot with user acceptance, because you could customize the templates to use for myFIdoc in the corporate style and look and feel like tools you used in the past if you use the Excel solution. So that always then also helped people that generated Excel templates with data in, then they could just easily transport them into the new template version from myFIdoc. So once again, the approval process obviously improved quite heavily. In principle, it works like this. For example, if it's about a posting between controlling and finance, controlling uses myFIdoc, enters their journals, submits it. It goes, or emails are sent out, and then the finance department can check the journal. They're not able to amend it, what's quite important. So this risk, what I talked before, it's not there anymore, because they can't amend the postings. They can then, obviously through a Fiori portal, approve the posting or reject it. Obviously reject it always with a reason. And one other thing that happens when no faulty journals can't be submitted. Yeah, as I mentioned before, this email ping pong in the past, we had hundreds of calls. I myself years ago had to process an awful lot of those CSV uploads, and it was a painful experience occasionally. And obviously, accounting was in nerves, and controlling was in nerves, because obviously something had to be fixed in 15 minutes, and was not working. If it's 400 lines and you're still at row 227 and there's still a mistake, can be a pain. So this can't happen anymore because all those validations we have set up, those are picked up by myFIdoc, and you get one error message with all the errors. So there's a VT code missing, or wrong cost center can't be used with this account. Only investment accounts can be used with this order number, and so on and so on. So it gives me all those error messages until row 999 in one go, and then it can be fixed in one go, and no email ping pong anymore. And the good thing for accounting is as well, those are fixed before the file can be submitted. So you're only actually stealing the time of one department to fix the job, and the department that submits the data, that's invested, and you don't wasting time of two departments. That also helps. So as mentioned, our overall month-end process was, at least in terms of time, was a lot of man-day saved, and I think the stressful time of the month end actually got less stressful. What's always a good thing. That's it for me. I think I might say one or two more words when Ramesh does the presentation, and I think because as I'm one of the users and not the programmer, I might be able to point things out that actually struck me as.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, when I'm going through the presentation, Sebastian, if there's anything you want to highlight which you found very, very positive and beneficial, let me know, and we'll just have a quick chat about that.
Perfect.
Okay. On that note,
at the end, I'm pretty sure we'll find some time, and then we can go through them.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So without much ado, what I'm now going to do is I'm going to show my screen. I'm going to show you the system. Now, in order to show the system, I'm not going to cheat at all. I'm going to go very, very basically to kick off my Excel. So as Sebastian mentioned, what we did was to make people's lives easy. We created a simple template that allowed people to customize the templates also the way they wanted. So if you look at the template that we've got over here, if I didn't use some of this functionality of all these columns, or I wanted to move them about, that's not a problem. All the user had to do was simply go to myFIdoc, go to the settings button, and they can choose where they want those items to be. So if I wanted to move company code, instead of being column G to column, I don't know, another column L, I will simply go to company code over here and remove the G and put in an L. And that's how simple it was. Thus, if there's too much information, like when I go into SAP FB 60 or 50, I see lots of fields, but I don't want to use all of them. So this allowed people to be very simple, say, look, these are the only 7 fields I need. And if there's only 7 fields, I'm not going to get confused. And that's all they did. They only created the fields that they wanted, and that way we kept the whole thing very simple. The other thing Sebastian mentioned very, very strongly, which the users found very useful, was when I'm on an input field, like say cost center, if I hit value help, it tells me what cost centers I have. And again, one of the beauties about this is if I put in, say, finance, FIN, mind you, there's nothing called finance. Let's choose, make it a bit smaller, say marketing, MAR. You can see everything that's got an MA in it, it picks it up. And I can see it straight away. So to choose cost centers, GL accounts, people were using English or German, and they were getting all the account codes. So again, makes it very easy for the user. And the key thing which I want to stress is this was all context sensitive. Supposing I deleted the company code 2000 from there, and I chose another company code. And in this case, I'll choose Germany. And now if I go to the cost center field and choose value help, you'll notice it's giving me only Germany's company cost centers. So I can choose things as I wish. And that was one of the benefits of putting things into Excel and functionality that people are very familiar to use with in the web in an Excel front end. So teaching time of how to enter in journals almost was eliminated. Now I'm going to do a quick end-to-end demo, and I'm very conscious of time that we've got a lot to go through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose an item which I did earlier on and then use that as a template, well, as an item. Now if I go to this tab called history, if I now put in over here 2018 and I press the button get data, it's going to pull back from SAP in real time all the journals that I've been entered in 2018. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a simple journal to do a payroll cost transfer. So if I highlight that item and I select it, it'll now go back into SAP and pull the journal back and show it to me. And this means that I don't need to save anything in Excel spreadsheets everywhere, because the information is sitting in SAP all the time and I can get it back whenever I want. Thus, you're deleting a number of Excel sheets, you've only got your interactive Excel talking to SAP, and you're seeing everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter this journal in again, a simple payroll cost transfer. I'm going to change the date to be end of June. So I'm going to put 30th of June, not June, Jun 18. And again, the beauty about this is I'm using standard SAP Excel functionality to do cut and paste, delete things from wherever I don't want it, and carry on with my journal. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete some of this data, and I can add more lines by simply picking this up, Control C and Control V. So now I've got a 10-line journal. Now I want you to remember that we just increased the journal number of lines on this to 10, and I'm just going to let it go on that basis. I'm going to call this payroll cost transfer. I'm going to change the narrative here to be demo so we can track it. So please note, I'm entering the journal in June, and it's called, the reference is pay cost demo. At this stage, I'm going to submit it. Now, it's going to go to an approver, as exactly what Sebastian mentioned. What approver is it going to go to? Oh, that depends on the configuration in the backend SAP system. Now, if I want to know what that is, if I hit this button here called Alternative Approver, it will say right now my username is Edith and my approver is Mary. So that's who it's going to go to. It will go to Mary for approval. So I'm now going to submit this. I press the button submit, it's connecting to SAP and it's talking to it and it's sent it over. So actually I made a mistake. Mary's a bit careful. She will not approve anything unless I've given her some backing documentation. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to give her some backing documentation. So I may have some emails in my system or some images or whatever supporting documentation I want to add. I can simply say, you know what, I want to add that supporting documentation to this journal. So I'm going to go to my system here, and I'm going to choose some data, just random data as supporting documentation. I'm actually going to use this credit card statement as my supporting documentation. I'm going to open it, and it's there. I'm now going to say upload. I can add as many supporting documentation as I like, or as few, yeah, and I close it. Now by simply doing this, the system now has sent an email to Mary. So if I log in over here onto Mary's Outlook account, I notice there's an email over here saying, Edith has sent you a journal notification from Edith lots of ones, 1 and lots of zeros. Control C, I'm going to take that number for you to look at. Please click this link to press here. If I did that, it's going to take me to this item over here because I haven't logged in before. It's going to ask me to, oops, Mary's password, log on. I'm going to log in as Mary, and in here, there's a bunch of Fury applications, but this is the one I want to go to right now. So if I go in here, you'll see the item that Mary wants to go to and approve is this here called Pay Cost Demo. I click on that, and there it is. Here's my 10 lines that I added in. If I press this button over here, I open it, and I can see the credit card statement that Mary's attached, or Edith's attached as backup. And it's as simple as that. I can consume this in an airport lounge whilst I'm traveling. Why? Because it's a web-based application. So wherever I got internet, I can use this. So it's a very simple application. Now, Mary can either approve it or she can reject it. Now, if Mary is going to take time approving it, me as the person who created it, Edith, if I go back to history over here and I do a refresh and say, look, go get me data, I'm going to narrow it down to period 06 and get data. So this time around, it'll only show me one line that I created in June, and there it is. And you can see the status says approval pending by Mary. So at any one time, anytime, the user who created the item knows the status of the item whenever they want to know. Yeah. We also have a dashboard functionality where if I was a corporate controller or something, and I wanted an overview of what's happening in my world, I could go back to the web application and hit this thing called dashboard. And then it will give me a bigger picture of actually what's happening in my world. So if I put in here company code 2000, and the fiscal year is 2018, and I want to choose period. I'm going to be cheeky here. I'm going to choose period, all of it. I'm going to say period is from period 1 to period 12, and generate the report. It will now give me what's happening in my company code and things which may, so I'm going to hide this for a while, just a little bit over here, so you can see statistics and things which have gone directly in the system, REs from, invoice verification, goods receipting happening, journals happening, invoices have been posted. I've got a whole visibility of everything. And here I can use a filter functionality to narrow in on anything I want. But again, it just shows you something like this on a web application, very powerful. A corporate controller or a department manager can keep an eye and understand what's happening in his or her department. Sebastian, have I missed out any key points that you guys found very useful?
What we found useful, because we don't have this one-to-one relationship between person who enters the data and approves it. It's normally a group of people, yeah, that can approve it to avoid bottlenecks and the occasion people take vacation even in Germany. So even though we are hardworking, but we take vacation as well. So because you only show there's a one-to-one, that's easy to marry, but obviously you can also select a group. It's just down to the SAP permission, how you create them, that more than one person is able to approve a journal.
No, you're totally right. Again, what Sebastian is doing. Sorry.
Because quite often you will have like a certain department that approves transaction from a different department, yeah. So that's what we have here as well, and found very, very useful. But obviously you can also have all their junior accountants, whatever they post needs to be approved by the senior accountant, so you can set this up as well. So the possibilities are endless.
Okay. Now what I'm going to do, is I'm going to go into SAP to show you that item also in SAP. So if I go to the transaction FB03, put in the company code 2000, year 2018, you'll see it also comes up over there. And again, to show you there's only one version of the truth, and the truth is in SAP. If I hit attachment list, you'll see the credit card statement I've got. So everything that we just did right now is a live demo. You can see everything sits in SAP. That's the only place the truth resides. And that's important. And here we're using almost everything which is effectively standard functionality, the attachment functionality, the archive link functionality. We're just harnessing it in a clever way that I can see that information in Excel. I can see this information in a web application, and to make our lives easy. And that's what it's all about. So here you can, as you can see, everything that I just did, I can see in Excel, I can see it in SAP, and I can see it on a web browser. Now you notice over here it says parked document. So if I now finish the little demo and I go into this thing, if I press this button over here, which Sebastian said earlier on is very important, because if I have a person submitting the item, then it's going to a group of account people to approve it. I want to see the audit trail saying it went to a group, but out of the group, Sebastian approved it. So this screen over here will give you that full audit visibility. Okay. So without much ado, I'm now going to close this part and move on to the next piece of functionality, which is related to this, is intercompany. Okay, so this is a bit about, as I said, myFIdoc and some of the functionality that the guys are using at 1&1. In addition to this, we also, as Sebastian mentioned earlier on, one of the big problems they also had was, let's be open and honest, tax and intercompany posting. And the biggest problem with intercompany posting, and Sebastian will correct me if I'm wrong, is when I make intercompany posting, there are so many tax rules in Europe and across the world. If it's a pure export going to another country, you're allowed to tax, allowed to charge them tax. In some cases, you're not allowed. If I've got the right amount of information, or they're a partner and they're all in the same VAT group, I'm allowed to charge VAT, and sometimes I'm not. All of those things are a minefield. And especially if I'm going to go into a shared service environment, or I'm going to have a high turnover staff, this area becomes very manual and becomes very labor intensive. So the challenge here was, how do we make this automated? So what we did here was simply, again, as Sebastian mentioned earlier on, use some of the functionality of intercompany. And what I'm going to do is we could have done this through myFIdoc as well, but just to make things a lot more quicker, I'm going to create a quick invoice from a vendor. I'm going to push it through in intercompany. The item is £3,000 and is going to go to company code 2000, which is UK, 1000, which is Germany, and 2300, which is Spain. Now, before I press a button, I also want to show you something in the configuration. In the configuration, I want to show you that when I'm posting from Germany, so from UK to Germany, if I'm using the VAT code V1, I need to use the EC rules about making an input tax and output tax posting automatically. If I'm posting to Spain, because I have not got that ticked, it won't follow the EC rules. I've deliberately made this setup so to demonstrate a point. So let's hit the button and I press post. As soon as I post, it's giving me some error messages saying my tax amounts are not quite right, but it's made the posting anyway because I'm forcing it through, and I'm going to continue. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly look at this document, and if I go to the posting that went to Germany, you can see it's made the posting to the sister company Spain and to Germany as debtors, and you can see they are 01 posting key. 01 posting key, so they're set up as debtors. And it's made a posting for the vendor invoice input tax is over here, but it's also generated an output tax for one of the guys to where they are not VAT registered, and I have to charge them VAT. So let's have a quick look at the items that went into those companies. So if I go to Document Environment Relationship Browser, you'll see that it created another item in company code 1000. So if I quickly look at 1000, you'll notice here it did the in and out VAT posting in accordance with Germany's old 15% tax. And if I now go to Spain, which is this one over here, you'll find it didn't do the in and out. It just said, look, I've got a vendor invoice which I need to process as a normal vendor invoice via VAT, and there it is. So it's managed the whole situation by itself based on the configuration the accountants, in this case, people like Sebastian, have told it. And therefore, my AP staff don't need to be intercompany accountants. They can just carry on being AP staff.
Yeah, maybe if I can, but basically what you need to do, you need to put together like a database. If you receive an invoice with standard VAT, yeah, and it needs to be recharged to another German entity, yeah, this normally triggers an output VAT sign for normal standard recharges with VAT, and you just build up those pairs in the customizing. And the great thing is about this, you can't make mistakes, because if you receive an invoice with standard VAT in entity A and it needs to be recharged with entity B and they're not in the same tax group, the sales invoice or issue always needs to be issued with standard VAT rate. And as long as the tax group doesn't change, our customer will be correct and they will always issue an invoice with the correct VAT rate. And the good thing is you don't have to take a copy of whatever invoice you receive, depending on how you enter your invoices. If you, for example, here attach an invoice to the initial posting and entered, in this case it was UK, I think, it will attach as well this invoice through the standard SAP functionality of cross-entity postings, as well in all other entities. And the functionality will create a sales invoice as well.
That's correct. And in addition to that, what Sebastian said, the one of the things that one-on-one helped us develop was these additional lines as well. In order to make sure you're accounting for the cross-revenue, cross-charges, you may need to create additional revenue postings. And then the system, again, per the configuration, will create these additional postings to account for revenue, to cancel out thereafter, for the accounting remains intact and correct. So it's a clever little tool, gets rid of a lot of problems. And again, if you want more information, as I said, please do write into us and we'll give you more information. However, I'm getting poked by Juliana in the interest of time. I now need to move on and go on to the next set of things. So we've done a quick overview of both the intercompany and the FIDoc. So now I'm going to have a small chat with Rafaela to tell us about a little bit about the landscape and some of the ways in terms of technical sides which they were laid with. Now, before I hand over to Rafaela, the landscape which we need to run the solution that we just talked about is quite thin, I suppose, is probably the right word. Because you need an SAP system, which I think most people in terms of who'd want to look at this have. The other thing you need, I suppose, is obviously Excel or Outlook, which a lot of people already have. And the middle layer that you need is a NetWeaver gateway platform as a communication layer. Now, most people have this, but sometimes it may not be maintained at the right level. So we had to do a little bit of work just to keep it up to date. But again, in one-on-one's case, they had all the landscape. The NetWeaver platform was there. They have Excel, they have Outlook, and they had SAP. So in terms of hardware and presentation layer or service layer, there was no impact to them whatsoever. And that's important to understand. The impact to the technical side should be minimized as much as possible. So Rafaela and her team had already done a lot of work in authorizations and profiles. Question is, does something like this come along and create a problem for them? Rafaela, did an application like this, what sort of headaches did it give you in roles, authorizations, and profiles?
Yeah, hello all together. When we started to implement the myFIdoc tool and the myIntercompany, we identified internally three types of user groups that should be assigned or should be assigned to special transaction and functionalities. The first are the controllers. The controller part is my part, because me and my colleague, we are the first level support for SAP CO, the controlling part, and we are also the spot for Cordis for all issues we came across during the test phase and the implementation, the ramp up now. And the controllers for itself, they are not authorized to do the posting and module FI directly. They only can park the documents, and from this they are allowed to do the parking, the parking transactions that are behind the myFIdoc functionality, parking the document. The next user groups are the accountants. The accountants for itself, they are able to use the myFIdoc and the myIntercompany functionalities and the myFIdoc template. When they use it, they can directly do the posting. They are not implemented in a workflow that an approver in accounting has to check and approve the documents. They can do it by themselves. And then the third group are the approvers. They are special colleagues in accounting that are checking the postings for the controllers, as we have seen in the demonstration by Ramesh. They check the posting, they approve or reject it if anything may be wrong or is wrong. And very important for us is every time a user is going to use myFIdoc, because the it is an Excel com add-in that has to be ordered by our office IT colleagues and has to be installed on each machine. Then we are the one who start the authorization tickets for our SAP Basic colleagues, that all people, every myFIdoc user is assigned to one of the groups, and then myFIdoc can be used in the way it should be used by the one.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Now, the key thing I think we need to understand from what Rafaela is saying is, once they had identified these different roles, any existing authorization profiles that they had, i.e. Rafaela can look at company code 1000 or Germany, and she's not allowed to look at the other one. Once she created that in SAP and she was using for other things, it's the same group and roles we're using in terms of permissions to control the postings which are happening from these applications as well. So that we're reusing as much as we can. And if you want to improve your process by creating additional roles to improve the 4 eyes processes, exactly that's what you do. Yeah. So that's very important. The key thing here is there's a lot of reuse wherever possible, and you're putting in new things only when you need to. Rafaela, one other thing which, if you could share some information with us, in terms of, you mentioned about putting this into the system, in terms of installing into the dev environment and putting into your QA environments. Was it a big problem? Was it easy, something relatively quick? Did it take a long time to get the basic thing working?
No, it was really fast to implement it, and we had how to say, a big challenge internally for the organization to do the testing with all colleagues, because we are very proud that we started training sessions with all colleagues in controlling and accounting departments, supported by me and by Sebastian, that all colleagues were familiar with the tool before they used it in the first months and closing, because actually in October we decided we have to use it, and then we did the trainings. Everyone had to install the myFIdoc Excel add-in. They get the training. They did in the trainings, they did the first postings by themselves to see how easy it works and how smart the functionalities are. And so it was not a big deal for us to do it.
Thank you very much for that. Now, what I'm going to now do is move along in terms of just quickly highlighting some of the things which both Rafaela and Sebastian just highlighted. First and foremost, what we saw is the guys talked about addressing a business problem. The key thing is whatever solution they use technology-wise to address the business problem, it was important for them that it interfaced. Unlike the previous, integrated, let me apologize, integrated with SAP. Unlike the previous tool, which there was a CSV upload, which was an interface. Okay? So, and when something is integrated, then it's consuming things which is within SAP, and there's less rework. There's no other black box here you have to look after. We talked about the workflow. We saw the workflow is audited and maintained in SAP. So again, one version of the truth. Nobody's going to argue about the data. We again talked about security, where Rafaela took us through some of the security protocols that they went through. And again, it's something which the basis team picked up and ran with it, because it's using standard tools, security tools, which people are familiar with. That's a benefit from the technical side and some of the business side. Some of the more tangible benefits are the stuff which Sebastian mentioned right at the beginning. It helped them tremendously in their month-end close process. They probably have shaved off more than a day in their close process. From an investment perspective, if we did a simple payback or return on investment calculation, bearing on some of the savings they made in terms of closing the numbers quickly, the effort that the people are engaged in are now putting into this thing, the improvement in accuracy, there's a significant number of days been saved. And if
don't forget the nerve.
yeah, and if you look at add up those time that they saved, and how do you measure the improvement in accuracy? I don't know. But if you look at some of the things that you can measure, one believe that they probably have a payback of this application within 6 months. Yeah, and I think that's the key thing. The key thing is, look, the application is only there to help us get better. That means that Sebastian's got more drinking time. And right now, Sebastian needs a drinking time because Germany is not doing so well. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we're going to celebrate tonight, but hey, not to worry about that. So he needs a better extra drinking time, and it's good that this application is giving him some drinking time back. Okay. On that note, before we sign off, we have a few minutes for some questions. And we're going to see if we've got a couple of questions. And we've got some questions which came in earlier on. So I'm going to read out those questions. And if I could ask Sebastian or Rafaela to answer them, that would be great. One of the questions that came in was, can you tell us a little bit more about user adoption? Who wants to take that up?
Okay. Okay, maybe I will start.
Okay.
In the beginning, the user acceptance was quite different because Sebastian told every change wants to be avoided by everyone, and our users at 1&1 are not different in this way. But in total, many of the users were open for the new tool and its functionalities, and because the big advantage is a full integration in SAP. At least some users were quite critical, some controllers, and but after several months and closings, they feel confident with it now, and I'm sure they would miss it if we would cut it now, because it works very it is very safe, it is very easy to handle. Our support, I think, is great. We are very fast, and if we come to a bug that may happen, then we have a very good support with Cordis, and we find a solution very fast together. And so I think now all the users are very fine with myFIdoc, and the colleagues in accounting with myIntercompany too.
Thank you very much. A follow-on question. Sorry, Sebastian. Maybe you can pick up the follow-on question. Sebastian, the follow-on question is, how much time did you guys spend on training and getting the people ready to use the system?
So basically, we did better safe than sorry approach, and did like a face-to-face training for all our colleagues in the finance functions. It's like, I think it was half-an-hour sessions per group. Basically, the principles getting people actually on the system. What's easy peasy normally, you just copy in the link from SAP system, start the Excel template, try the value help, you're connected. The most challenging part were like some controllers didn't know the SAP passwords. So they were the biggest obstacles in training we actually came across. So we had a SAP basis guy is on standby to actually help us resetting passwords and letting people to know what were their passwords. So that was the biggest challenge. As mentioned before, it's Excel. Most people have seen Excel before. Most people are familiar with Excel. And if you're kind of a friend with Excel, it just comes familiar to work with it. The other thing, the approval portal, it's more or less self-explaining, yeah. You see the data. If you don't know how to check the data in SAP, you don't know how to check the data on the template because it has basically all the information. So it was actually just sending the link out, once running through it with the colleagues that actually need to do the approval, and that's it, because it's self-explaining, and that's how a tool should be. So you don't need to read a 200-page manual. There are always some questions, because like with everything, the tips and tricks, and a lot of it comes back down to the basic Excel, what we come across today. It's not like myFIdoc, it's more basic Excel, what people need to learn. So, but hey, that's what we're here for. So,
thank you very much. On that note, again, we are running out of time. So on this note, what Juliana would like me to tell everybody is, we do have another webinar on My Buyer's Workbench. It's a tool which is designed to help on the procurement side. I think, Julian, that's happening tomorrow. That's happening tomorrow. So if anybody has got time to log in, and also check out social media and to register, that'll be fantastic. On that note, I thank you guys for attending, and our big thanks to Rafaela and Sebastian for sharing their experiences very candidly, very openly. And again, as I said, if you do have any questions and you want to know more about this, feel free to drop us a note, and we'll do a follow-up with yourselves on a one-to-one basis.
perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.